If you think a cleaner is invisible, be careful what you say when he's holding the mop. The warning came too late for everyone inside the gleaming headquarters of Carter Global Holdings. Ethan Carter stood in the center of the marble lobby, wearing a faded gray cleaning uniform, rubber gloves, and a plastic name badge that read, Ethan Cole. A mop rested between his hands. To the employees rushing past, he was nobody important, just another cleaner paid to erase the messes powerful people left behind. Richard Coleman, the company's operations director, stopped several feet away and pointed toward a puddle of coffee near Ethan's shoes. Are you blind, or are you simply bad at your job? His voice carried across the lobby. Conversation stopped. Heads turned. Ethan looked at the spill. He hadn't caused it. Richard knew that. Everyone nearby knew it. Nobody spoke. I'm handling it, sir, Ethan said calmly. Richard gave a humorless laugh. Then handle it faster. This is Carter Global, not some roadside diner. Ethan tightened his grip on the mop, but remained silent. 3 weeks ago, Richard would have opened doors for him, offered him the best chair in the boardroom, and called him Mr. Carter with a nervous smile. Today, Richard didn't recognize him. That was exactly the point. Then Brittany Hayes stepped out of an elevator in an expensive cream-colored suit. She was the woman Ethan's mother believed would make the perfect wife for him. Brittany noticed the gathering and frowned. What's happening? Richard smiled immediately. Nothing important, just reminding the cleaning staff about standards. Brittany glanced at Ethan for barely a second before looking away. Good. This lobby should never look cheap. A few employees laughed softly. Ethan felt something inside him sink. Brittany had spent months telling Ethan Carter that kindness mattered more than money, yet she couldn't offer basic respect to a man she believed had neither. Richard pointed at the floor again. Well, get down there and clean it properly. Ethan slowly reached for a cloth on his cart. Then a woman's voice cut through the silence. That's enough. Every face turned. Maya Brooks stood near the reception desk, clutching a stack of folders against her chest. Richard's expression hardened. Excuse me. Maya swallowed, clearly nervous, but she walked forward anyway. He said he's cleaning it. Humiliating him won't make the floor cleaner. Silence fell over the lobby. Ethan stared at her. Maya had no idea who he was. She had nothing to gain by defending him. Richard stepped closer. You should worry about your own position, Ms. Brooks. Maya looked at Ethan, then at the cloth in his hand. Without another word, she placed her folders on the reception desk, took a second cloth from his cart, and crouched beside the spill. If he has to clean it, she said quietly, I'll clean it with him. Ethan froze. For the first time since entering his mother's company disguised as a cleaner, someone had chosen his dignity over their own comfort. And Maya Brooks had no idea that the man beside her would one day inherit the entire building. 3 weeks earlier, Ethan Carter had been standing 42 floors above downtown Atlanta, staring through the glass walls of his mother's penthouse as another carefully planned dinner unfolded behind him. Everything around him reflected the life he had inherited. Crystal glasses, tailored suits, private elevators, a city skyline that seemed to belong to the Carter family. Yet Ethan had never felt more uncertain about the people surrounding him. At 29, he was already expected to become the next chairman of Carter Global Holdings, the multi-billion-dollar company his mother, Victoria Carter, had spent 3 decades building. Victoria was brilliant, disciplined, and nearly impossible to impress. That evening, however, she wanted only one thing from her son. Give Brittany a real chance, she said. Ethan turned from the window. Across the room, Brittany Hayes was laughing with several executives. She looked elegant, confident, and perfectly comfortable among powerful people. You make marriage sound like a merger, Ethan said. Victoria raised an eyebrow. Marriage is more complicated than a merger. That is why I am concerned about your judgment. Ethan almost smiled. I thought you liked my judgment. In business, yes. In love, absolutely not. Later that evening, Ethan stepped into the hallway to answer a call. As he returned, he heard Brittany speaking around the corner. She did not know he was there. Of course I like Ethan, she told a friend. But be serious. Becoming Mrs. Carter means I would never have to worry about anything again. The company alone is worth billions. Ethan stopped. Brittany laughed softly. Love is wonderful, but access is better. Those words landed harder than Ethan expected. He quietly walked away before she saw him. By midnight, the guests were gone. Victoria found her son alone in the library. What happened? She asked. Ethan looked at an old photograph of himself before the tailored suits and magazine covers, back when strangers did not recognize his last name. I want 30 days, Victoria studied him. For what? To find out how people behave when they think I have nothing to offer them. Her expression changed. Ethan explained his plan. He would disappear from executive life and enter Carter Global as an ordinary temporary cleaner. No luxury car, no assistant, no expensive watch, no Carter name. Only Victoria and the head of human resources would know the truth. You think pretending to be poor will help you find love? Victoria asked. No, Ethan replied. I think becoming invisible might help me see people clearly. Victoria remained silent for several seconds. Then she slowly nodded. 30 days. Ethan exhaled. You agree? I agree to let you discover something I learned years ago. She walked toward the door, then stopped. But be careful what truth you ask for, Ethan. Sometimes, the people who disappoint you are not the ones you expected. The next Monday morning, Ethan Carter disappeared. At least, the version of Ethan Carter everyone knew disappeared. The tailored navy suits stayed inside his closet. His luxury watch remained locked in a drawer. His black SUV never left the private garage. Instead, Ethan stood before a mirror in a modest apartment Victoria had quietly arranged for the experiment, wearing gray work pants, plain sneakers, and a cleaning uniform with the name Ethan Cole printed across his badge. He studied his reflection. Nothing about the man staring back suggested billions of dollars, private boardrooms, or a future chairmanship. For the first time in years, Ethan felt strangely exposed. He took a city bus to Carter Global and walked the final 3 blocks beneath the cool morning sky. The headquarters rose ahead of him, 48 stories of steel and glass carrying his family name above the entrance. Ethan had entered that building hundreds of times, through a private executive garage. That morning, security directed him toward the employee entrance without a second glance. Temporary cleaning staff? The guard asked. Yes, sir, Ethan replied. Service elevator is around the corner. Ethan nodded and continued walking. It was exactly what he wanted, yet the feeling surprised him. Without the Carter name, nobody smiled longer than necessary. Nobody rushed to open a door. Nobody cared where he was going. By 8:30, Ethan was pushing a supply cart through the same executive floor where people usually stood when he entered a room. He recognized nearly everyone. They did not recognize him. One vice president tossed an empty coffee cup toward his cart without making eye contact. Another executive complained that Ethan was blocking the hallway, even though she had spent 20 minutes praising his leadership at a charity dinner 2 months earlier. Ethan said nothing. He watched. He listened. Then Richard Coleman appeared. New guy? Richard asked. Yes, sir. Richard looked him over with immediate disappointment. Then learn quickly. Executives should never have to notice cleaning staff. If we notice you, you are doing something wrong. Ethan almost laughed at the irony. Richard had once told Victoria that every employee at Carter Global deserved dignity. Apparently, dignity had conditions. Around noon, Brittany Hayes entered the building with 2 friends. Ethan was wiping fingerprints from the glass doors when she passed within 3 feet of him. For one terrifying second, he thought she recognized him. Brittany looked directly at his face. Ethan held still. Then she handed him an empty coffee cup. "Trash this for me." She walked away without waiting for an answer. Ethan stared at the cup in his hand. The woman who claimed she wanted a future with Ethan Carter had not even considered Ethan Cole worth a thank you. Then another voice came from behind him. "Do not let people like that ruin your day." Ethan turned. A young woman stood there, holding several folders against her chest. Her name badge read, Maya Brooks. She smiled at him. Not politely, not nervously, but genuinely. "First week?" she asked. "First day?" "I could tell." Maya reached for the coffee cup and dropped it into the trash bag on his cart. "Welcome to Carter Global, Ethan." Then she looked directly into his eyes. "Good morning." 2 ordinary words. Yet after hours of being treated like part of the furniture, they stopped Ethan completely. He watched Maya walk toward the elevators, wondering why a simple greeting suddenly mattered so much. He had entered the company looking for proof that people were fake. Before his first day was even over, one woman had already given him a reason to question that belief. By the end of Ethan's first week, Maya Brooks had become the one person he could not predict. She never treated him like a charity case, and she never acted as though kindness deserved applause. She simply noticed people everyone else ignored. On Tuesday, Ethan watched her hold an elevator for an elderly cleaner while 3 managers complained about being late. On Wednesday, she quietly helped a nervous receptionist correct a report before Richard Coleman could embarrass her. On Thursday, Ethan decided to test Maya himself. At lunchtime, he stood near the company cafeteria pretending to count a few crumpled bills before putting them back into his pocket. Maya noticed immediately. "You are not eating?" she asked. Ethan shrugged. "Trying to save money." She studied him for a second, then sat at a nearby table and opened her lunch container. "Good. You can save money while helping me finish this." She divided her chicken sandwich and pushed half toward him. Ethan hesitated. "You do not have to do that." "I know." That answer stayed with him. She expected nothing. No gratitude beyond a simple thank you. No story about his problems. No promise that he would repay her. 2 days later, Ethan created another small test. He told Maya he had missed the bus and would have to walk nearly 4 miles home. She immediately pulled out her transit card. "Take this." Ethan shook his head. "How will you get home?" "I have enough for both of us." "Why are you helping me?" Maya looked almost confused by the question. "Because you need help." Ethan felt ashamed. He had entered Carter Global believing everyone needed to prove their goodness to him. Yet Maya kept reminding him that genuine kindness did not perform for an audience. Their conversations became longer. She told him about growing up with a hard-working mother who had taught her that respect was free. Ethan carefully avoided questions about his own family. He hated lying to her, but every day made the truth harder to reveal. Then one evening, long after most employees had left, Ethan saw Maya step out of an elevator on the executive floor. She looked around carefully before walking toward Richard Coleman's office. Ethan stopped pushing his cleaning cart. Maya was supposed to work 3 floors below. She had no reason to be there. He waited until she disappeared around the corner, then followed at a distance. Through the glass wall, he saw her standing beside Richard's filing cabinet, with several documents in her hands. Her expression was tense. She photographed one page with her phone, then another. Ethan's stomach tightened. The woman he had begun trusting was secretly collecting confidential company records. He backed away before she could see him. Suddenly, every kind gesture felt different. Every conversation replayed inside his mind. Had Maya known more about him than she admitted? Had she been using him to move around the building unnoticed? Ethan had come here to discover whether people could be trusted. Now the only person he wanted to trust was hiding something from him. For the next 2 days, Ethan said nothing about what he had seen. He kept cleaning offices, emptying trash cans, and pretending everything was normal. But every time Maya smiled at him, suspicion followed. He hated that feeling. Worse, he hated how much he cared about the answer. On Wednesday afternoon, Maya found him eating alone near the employee courtyard. "You have been avoiding me," she said. Ethan looked up. "I have been working." Maya sat across from him. "That is a terrible excuse. We work in the same building." Ethan almost smiled, but then he remembered the photographs. "Maybe I am learning. Not everyone is what they seem." Maya's expression changed. "That sounds personal." "Maybe it is." For several seconds, neither spoke. Maya finally looked away. Sometimes people hide things because they are afraid nobody will believe them. Ethan studied her face. Before he could ask what she meant, Richard appeared through the courtyard doors and called Maya back upstairs. She immediately became tense. Ethan noticed. That evening, he followed her again. This time, Maya entered a small records room beside Richard's office. Ethan waited until she left, then slipped inside with his cleaning cart. A folder had been left partly open on the desk. Ethan knew he should walk away. Instead, he looked. His breath caught. The pages showed payments from Carter Global to several consulting companies Ethan had never heard of, hundreds of thousands of dollars at a time. Some invoices were approved by Richard himself. Ethan photographed the documents, then heard footsteps outside. He quickly returned the folder and pushed his cart into the hallway. Maya appeared around the corner. "Ethan?" Her eyes widened. "What are you doing up here?" "Cleaning." "At 9:30 at night?" Ethan stared at her. "I could ask why you are here." Maya went silent. There it was again, the secret between them. The next day, Ethan searched internal records using limited employee access. The consulting companies had received millions over several years, but their descriptions were vague. Something was wrong. Still, one question frightened him more than the missing money. Why did Maya have those files? That afternoon, Ethan found her bag beneath her desk while she was in a meeting. A folder was visible inside. He recognized Richard's documents. His heart sank. He had wanted desperately to believe there was another explanation. Then Maya returned unexpectedly. "What are you doing?" Ethan straightened. "I saw the folder." Her face lost its color. "You went through my bag?" "I saw you taking photographs in Richard's office. Now you have confidential financial records. Tell me the truth, Maya." Her eyes filled with disappointment. "You followed me?" What was I supposed to think? Maya looked around the nearly empty office, then closed the door. Her hands trembled as she removed the folder and placed it on the desk. "You want the truth?" she whispered. "Fine." She opened the first page and pointed to the payment records. "Someone has been stealing from Carter Global for years." Ethan froze. Maya looked directly at him. "And I think Richard Coleman is doing it." Ethan stared at the payment records, while Maya pulled several more pages from the folder. The numbers were worse than he expected. Nearly $4 million had moved through consulting contracts that appeared legitimate on the surface, but Maya had traced several of the companies to addresses that led nowhere. "How did you find this?" Ethan asked. Maya hesitated. 3 months ago, Richard asked me to reconcile vendor payments after someone in accounting went on leave. I found duplicate invoices. When I questioned them, he told me I was reading the reports incorrectly." "And you believed him?" "At first." Maya tapped one page. "Then I found this." The same consulting company had billed Carter Global twice for identical services within 48 hours. Both payments carried Richard's authorization. Ethan's expression hardened. "Why did you not report it?" Maya gave him a tired look. "To whom?" "Richard controls my department. I tried speaking to a senior manager. 2 days later, Richard called me into his office and somehow knew exactly what I had said." Ethan felt a chill. Maya continued. "He warned me that making accusations without proof could destroy my career. So I stopped talking and started collecting evidence." Suddenly, everything Ethan had mistaken for deception looked different. Maya had not been stealing from his family. She had been risking her job to protect a company that barely noticed her. Shame settled over him. "I am sorry," he said quietly. Maya folded her arms. "For following me or assuming the worst?" "Both." She studied him, then sighed. "You are strange, Ethan Cole." "I have heard that before. Most cleaners do not examine financial reports like auditors." Ethan's heart skipped. He had become careless. "My father taught me numbers," he said quickly. It was not entirely false. Maya accepted the answer, but her eyes remained curious. Ethan looked down at the documents. "You cannot keep doing this alone. I do not have much choice. You have me." Maya blinked. "You could lose your job." Ethan almost laughed at the irony. "Then we lose our jobs together." For the first time that night, Maya smiled. It was small, exhausted, but real. Over the next several days, they quietly compared invoices, vendor names, and approval dates. The pattern became impossible to dismiss. Richard had apparently been hiding questionable payments beneath legitimate operating expenses for years. Then Ethan noticed something even more disturbing. Several records had been altered recently, as though someone knew questions were being asked. "He knows," Ethan whispered. Maya's smile vanished. Across the office, Richard stood behind the glass wall of his executive suite, watching them. The next morning, Ethan and Maya were summoned to the main lobby. Richard waited beside 2 security officers, holding the same confidential folder Maya had hidden. Employees gathered around as he raised it for everyone to see. "Company records were removed without authorization," Richard announced coldly. His eyes settled on Maya, then Ethan. "And I believe I know exactly who took them." The lobby went silent. Maya stared at the folder in Richard's hand, while Ethan immediately understood what had happened. Richard was not trying to discover the truth. He was trying to bury it. "Those documents were found among restricted company files accessed under Ms. Brooks's credentials," Richard announced. Maya shook her head. "That is not the whole story." "Then explain it." "I found irregular payments and tried to report them." Richard smiled as if she had proven his point. "So, you admit taking confidential records?" Maya looked around the lobby. Dozens of employees were watching, but nobody stepped forward. Ethan recognized the fear on their faces. Richard had spent years teaching people that silence was safer than honesty. "She was investigating suspicious payments," Ethan said. Richard turned toward him. Nobody asked the cleaner. A few people lowered their eyes. Ethan remained calm. He could end everything in seconds. One phone call to Victoria, one sentence revealing his identity. Richard would immediately lose control. But Ethan remembered the altered records. If Richard believed he had already won, he might expose exactly how far the scheme reached. Ethan needed him confident. "I saw the invoices too," Ethan said. Richard's expression tightened for half a second. Then he recovered. "Excellent. So we have 2 employees admitting unauthorized access." "That is not what he said," Maya replied. Richard ignored her. "Effective immediately, Ms. Brooks. Your employment is terminated pending a formal investigation. Ethan Cole, your temporary assignment is also over." Maya went pale. "You are firing me for reporting financial misconduct?" "I am removing employees who violated company policy." The elevator doors opened behind them, and Brittany Hayes stepped into the lobby. She quickly understood enough to become interested. What happened? Richard explained that Maya and Ethan had been caught with confidential records. Brittany looked at Maya, then at Ethan's cleaning uniform. Her expression carried no sympathy. "This is why companies need standards," she said. Maya stared at her. Brittany continued. "People should appreciate opportunities instead of reaching for things that do not belong to them." Ethan felt anger rise inside him, but Maya answered first. "Truth belongs to everyone." Brittany gave a dismissive smile. "People like you should remember where they belong." The words hung in the air. Ethan looked at Maya. He wanted to tell her everything. He wanted to say that tomorrow, Brittany would understand exactly who she had insulted. But he stayed silent. The security officers politely escorted them toward the exit. Outside, Maya stood beneath the towering Carter Global sign, clutching a small box containing her belongings. "I'm sorry," Ethan said. "For what?" "For getting you involved." Maya looked at him with tired eyes. "I was involved before you arrived." Ethan stepped closer. "This is not over." "It is for me. I lost my job, Richard has the evidence, and nobody inside will challenge him." "I will." Maya shook her head sadly. "You cannot fix everything, Ethan." She started walking away, then stopped. "You promised you would not leave me alone in this." Ethan swallowed. "I remember." Maya looked at him for one painful second. "Then I hope you meant it." She walked away. Ethan waited until she disappeared around the corner before taking out the cheap phone he carried for his disguise. He dialed the one number he had avoided for weeks. Victoria answered immediately. "Ethan." His voice became cold and certain. "Mom, schedule an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. Invite Richard, invite Brittany, and bring Maya Brooks back into that building." Victoria paused. "Are you ending the experiment?" Ethan looked up at the Carter name shining above him. "No. I found what I came looking for. Now it is time they find out who they were really talking to." At 9 o'clock the next morning, the executive boardroom at Carter Global was filled with people who believed they understood exactly why they had been summoned. Richard Coleman sat near the head of the long, polished table, calm and confident. Brittany Hayes sat across from him beside Victoria Carter, dressed elegantly and wondering why an employee dispute required the attention of the company's billionaire founder. Maya Brooks arrived last. Human Resources had called her early that morning and asked her to return immediately. No explanation. No promise that she would get her job back. Maya entered quietly, still carrying the hurt of yesterday, and took the empty chair nearest the door. Richard looked almost amused. "I assume we are here to discuss the security breach," he said. Victoria folded her hands. "Among other things." Richard opened a folder. "Then I can save everyone time. Ms. Brooks admitted removing confidential documents, and the temporary cleaner working with her admitted seeing them." Maya started to speak, but Victoria gently raised one hand. "We will hear everything." The boardroom doors opened. Footsteps crossed the marble floor outside. Richard glanced toward the entrance impatiently. Then Ethan walked in. But Ethan Cole was gone. The gray cleaning uniform had disappeared. Ethan wore a perfectly tailored black suit, polished shoes, and the watch he had locked away 3 weeks earlier. His posture had changed, too. He was no longer trying to disappear. Brittany's mouth fell open. Maya stopped breathing for a moment. Richard stared at him, confused, then irritated. "Who let the cleaner into this meeting?" Victoria slowly stood. "I did." Silence swallowed the room. Ethan walked to the empty chair beside his mother, but did not sit. Victoria looked around the table. "For anyone here who has somehow failed to recognize him, this is Ethan Carter, my son and the future chairman of Carter Global Holdings." Richard's face changed instantly. Brittany whispered, "Ethan." Maya said nothing. She simply stared at the man she thought she knew. Ethan placed a thick file on the table. "For 3 weeks, I worked inside this company without my last name, my title, or any visible sign of wealth. I learned more about Carter Global pushing a cleaning cart than I ever learned sitting in this room." Richard shifted in his chair. "Mr. Carter, there has clearly been a misunderstanding." "No," Ethan said calmly. "For the first time, there has been complete understanding." He opened the file. Before Richard confiscated Maya's documents, Ethan had photographed every page and quietly sent copies to an independent forensic accounting team. Their preliminary review confirmed suspicious payments totaling nearly $4 million, along with recently altered records connected to Richard's authorization. The room erupted in whispers. Richard tried to explain, but Victoria stopped him. "The investigation will determine the facts. Until then, you are suspended from all company duties and access." Richard's confidence vanished. Brittany looked toward Ethan, as if searching for the familiar billionaire she knew, but Ethan never looked at her. His eyes remained on Maya. He expected relief, maybe even happiness. Instead, he saw betrayal. Maya slowly stood. "So Ethan Cole never existed?" she asked. Ethan's voice softened. "Maya, I can explain." Her eyes filled with disappointment. "You tested whether I could trust a man with nothing." She stepped away from the table. "But you never gave me the chance to decide whether I could trust a man who was lying to me." Maya walked out of the boardroom before Ethan could stop her. For the first time since beginning his experiment, his money, his name, and his power were completely useless. Over the following weeks, the investigation changed Carter Global. Independent auditors confirmed that Richard had manipulated vendor contracts and hidden millions of dollars in questionable payments. Victoria removed him permanently from the company, strengthened financial oversight, and created a confidential reporting system so employees could raise concerns without fearing retaliation. Maya was publicly cleared of wrongdoing and offered her position back with a promotion. She accepted the apology, but not the promotion. "I want to earn my future," she told Victoria, "not receive it because your son feels guilty." Victoria smiled. "That is exactly why you deserve one." Maya eventually agreed to return in a compliance role based on her work uncovering the financial irregularities. Brittany tried to speak with Ethan after the investigation began. She found him outside his office and offered the same polished smile that once impressed him. "You understand why I acted the way I did," she said. Ethan looked at her quietly. "I understand perfectly." "Then maybe we can start over." Ethan shook his head. "You were kind to Ethan Carter because you knew what he owned. You could not even say thank you to Ethan Cole." Brittany had no answer. Ethan walked away. But winning against Richard and seeing Brittany clearly did not feel like victory. He had found the woman who cared about him without knowing his wealth, then hurt her by turning their relationship into a test. So Ethan stopped testing people. He stopped sending gifts. He stopped using assistants to arrange meetings. Every morning for nearly 3 weeks, he arrived early and left a cup of coffee on Maya's desk with a simple note apologizing for one specific lie he had told. Maya never responded. Ethan kept showing up anyway. Then one Friday evening, he found her standing alone in the employee courtyard where they had once shared lunch. "You are persistent," she said. Ethan smiled carefully. "I learned that from someone." Maya looked at him. "Why did you really do it?" Ethan took a slow breath. "Because I was afraid everyone wanted something from me. I thought hiding my money would protect me." His voice softened. "Instead, I used my fear to make you prove something you never owed me." Maya remained silent. "I cannot change how we met," Ethan continued. "But I can promise you something now. No more tests, No more disguises. No more secrets. Maya studied him for a long moment. And if I never forgive you? Then I will respect that. That answer surprised her. Months passed. Trust returned slowly, through ordinary lunches, honest conversations, and days when Ethan was simply Ethan. One evening, they stood outside Carter Global after work. Maya reached for his hand. "I think I finally know who you are," she said. Ethan smiled. "Which version?" Maya smiled back. "The one who stopped pretending." Ethan had entered the company hoping to discover true love. In the end, he discovered something harder and far more valuable. Real love was never something another person had to prove. It was something two people built after the truth was finally allowed into the room.